Hi, I'm Captain Scarlet and welcome to my video for the Forncett Industrial Museum. So this was quite a lucky mistake, as we didn't actually mean to go to the museum. So the museum, when we went, had an open steam day where they put as many of the steam engines on as possible and just get everyone to experience everything on the site. So entry was £10, which for me was absolutely brilliant, but even better, they have an on-site cafe which was extremely good value. So I got a cup of tea, I got a cheese toastie and a cake, and it all came to under £10. On the day, the actual owner and many members of their family were on site, so we were bombarding them with lots and lots of questions. They answer them to the best of their ability, and I really recommend it. It's definitely a recommended place to go if you like anything to do with steam.
I did all this way back in when I was a young medical student, and this was the beginning of it all. And you might be quite surprised as how I started collecting steam engines, because I was trained to be a doctor, okay? I continued all my life as a doctor. It just so happened that my sister, who was a ballet dancer, was dancing at the Swiss State Opera Company in Bern in Switzerland, and she had a very good friend called GBL Wilson, who used to write for the Dancing Times. And Susie casually mentioned to him one day, "Oh, Rowan wants to collect something, but he's not quite sure what." What she didn't realise, of course, was that GB's proper job, he was one of the chief keepers at the Science Museum in London. And they had just been offered this little engine from Sarson's malt vinegar factory in Towerbridge Road. They didn't want it. So GB thought of me, and he contacted me, he said, "Meet me down at Sarson's malt vinegar factory. I've got something to show you which might be of interest." So I went down and we'll just move this one to a good start position. So bearing in mind, I've never ever seen a stationary engine working. I'm familiar with railway engines, which are quite noisy because they have a lot of chuffing going up the chimney, don't they? But when I saw this little engine running virtually silently like this, I thought, that's beautiful. I expect they're going to want a lot of money for it. No, you can have it for nothing if you give it a good home. So I went down a couple of weeks later, they popped it on my trailer, and I brought it back home to Norfolk. And I stopped off at Clacton on the way back to have a cup of tea. And while I was there, somebody came and tapped me on the shoulder and said, "I see you've got a steam engine on that trailer. Do you collect steam engines?" And I said, "Yes, I saw it yesterday." Really? "Oh, well, we got one we're chucking out a Clacton laundry next week. You can have it if you want." That's how it all started. And then, of course, these things, they always... Like Topsy, they grow up. But I always like to start with this engine, because if people don't know how stationary steam engines work, this tells it all. Because they are, like men, steam engines are very simple. 3 or 4 basic principles and you've got them taped. So remember that, ladies. So basically we have a boiler generating steam, and because it's a closed vessel, it generates pressure. That's what I'm having problems with this morning, but hopefully we'll get through the day. The steam is then supplied to the engine through a series of pipes, and this is the main steam valve which lets steam into the engine. And you can see it's got a round bit and a square bit. Now the square bit on the outside is called the steam chest. The steam is put into there, and you see it's in there, it's got 3 holes. I said it was simple, didn't I? Steam goes in one end, pushes the piston back to that end. Steam goes in the other end and pushes the piston back. And the hole in the middle is where the exhaust comes out. So if you're riding behind a railway engine, you hear it chuffing up the chimney, that's the exhaust coming out through there. So it's just pressure pushing backwards and forwards. That's why it's so quiet. No explosions. We don't want explosions. It's just Okay, so the more steam you allow to go into the engine, the faster it will go. And you can adjust the speed of the engine according to whatever duty. Now this was driving all the vinegar pumps at Sarsfield Malt Vinegar Factory, so it was running sort of full tilt, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, until they got rid of it. So this is the main steam valve. Now, I'm just going to show you one other thing, because completely different from what you have in a car engine. If you happen to stop this in the wrong place, it's called either top or bottom dead centre. Let me show you. Right. So you've seen that this engine does run. If I put the main steam back on again, let's see what happens. Absolutely nothing. Why is that?
Steam's going out the exhaust.
Sorry?
The steam going out the exhaust.
Yeah, but it can't actually get inside the cylinder. Okay? Because the piston is now right at this end, so the steam coming down here can't get around the corner. So we just got to... Oh, so we get it just past top dead centre. And then she'll run. Well, you don't have to do that every time you're running an engine, driving a battery. So that brings us to the function of the flywheel. Now the flywheel just it generates enough momentum so the engine never gets stuck at top or bottom dead centre. And then the car, of course, you've got 4 cylinders, so you don't get into that situation. So very simple, very reliable, and now the other thing that's very important, of course, is you've got to keep everything lubricated. So you've got a steel shaft there running in phosphor bronze or gunmetal bearings. If that didn't have a constant supply of oil dripping in there, that would just gradually grind the soft phosphor bronze bits into a heap of lovely shiny brass on the floor, which wouldn't be good. So this oiling system, again, is incredibly simple. You just fill up the glass jars, and there's a little needle valve in there, and you can adjust it so it puts in about 1 drop of oil every 3 minutes or so. But it is, of course, total waste on the floor of my boots. The steam cylinder itself inside, that also has to be lubricated, and that's lubricated through this device, which is a special steam oil which is miscible with water, and that keeps the inside piston nicely lubricated. Okay, now when you're running a factory, unlike when you have a railway engine where you have somebody controlling the speed of the engine, in a factory situation you usually set the governor to what speed you want the engine to run at. You see these little balls going around here. If I speed the engine up, see, as they go faster, it gradually comes out, and that will alter the amount of steam going into the engine. So if you had a whole lot of vinegar pumps, then you turn them off, the engine would start to speed up, this would cut the steam down and it would come back to its regular rated speed. Again, very simple, but then you didn't have to have an engine driver standing beside the engine all the time. Because obviously with trains and railway engines, it's a completely different situation because you've got gradients, you've got stopping stations, there are red signals, so you have to stop the engine and start it again. But this, basically, once the shift starts, you have the engine running automatically whatever speed you wanted the pumps to run at, and that will do it, all without any help. So clever, really. Okay. Simple, basic engineering. When I was training as an anaesthetist, I went from Leeds down to London. I worked at the Westminster Hospital, and I heard through the grapevine that Tower Bridge was being modernised, and they were chucking out some of the machinery. So I sat down, wrote a letter to the Chief Engineer of the Corporation of London, simply saying, I hear you're getting rid of one of your steam engines, could I possibly acquire it in my little museum in Norfolk? I posted the letter in the letterbox and I thought, I'll never hear anything again. It's one of the big machines, it's bound to what type of research. Well, do you know what? 6 weeks later, I had a letter back from the corporation along and said, we've decided to donate this engine to your museum. On 2 conditions. 1, you pay to get it up, and that was the usual standard. 2, you need to make it available for the public to see. Well, we agreed to both conditions, obviously, straight away. But that's what changed what you might describe as a men's shed situation into going down the museum. I had a career planned out as a doctor, so I did read it as a female. 1894 was when Tower Bridge opened, and there were 2 big steam engines providing hydraulic power through rams like this into accumulators. This is the situation where it's stuff at the top gets in. So we're going to bar it round by hand, okay? So Mike's going to take us off. Just take it down come back and hospital This is where we have our piece of engineering wood. Just engage the ball.
We're the wrong side of the engine here, aren't we? Are we the wrong side?
Okay, Colin should be able to get some steam on them. So exactly the same principle. Pushing that distance backwards and forwards. This cylinder into a slightly larger if you want to know a lovely sound, understand why they've got outside. Not today. To a big sawmill in Bradford, I'm not really sure. I said, is there any chance that the engine driver could show me this massive engine? And he said, yes, knock on the engine door, but don't go in and let us until he lets you go. So I stood there, I went to the door and said, can I come and see your steam engine? And he said, yes. And I picked my foot up and I was about to step onto his beautiful tile floor. He said, take those shoes off. I had to walk around the rest of the day with my socks because they were so proud of this engine. You wouldn't have any road between Leeds and Forncett is Sleaford. I don't know whether any of those Sleaford. And if any of you are familiar, if you're driving towards Nottingham, you look over on the left-hand side, Stephen used to belong to Bass Charrington's, and it was a Leeds. He said, next time you come down from Leeds to Forncett, stop off at Sleaford and have a look. There's a usual tandem compound there. He said it is quite big. We messed around with it. And they've got the engine out. It came down on one lorry from Sleaford to here, just in my dad's garden. And we had no buildings here at the start. This was an old cow shed. That's the bar indeed. Just get the thing So this is a 200 horsepower engine. Just think how noisy it is compared to the BMW in the garage next door. When this was running at full speed, 70 revs in it was driving up a full factory. 8 cotton ropes off the rim of the flywheel up to the line shaft. So similar to the Tower engine, it's got 2 cylinders, so the steam comes into the smaller one first, and then having been through that, it goes through that transfer pipe, the big black pipe, into the low pressure cylinder, which again is slightly bigger, so you can use the steam again, and then the steam exhausts on that big green pipe on the top into a condenser, a jet condenser. So you can actually have the piston being pushed on one side and sucked by the vacuum on the other. We have actually tried to run this engine with a bit of a start and hose pipe and things. The trouble was, once the vacuum was created and you turned the steam off, it took the engine 5 minutes to stop. So we said, this isn't safe if you demonstrate it at the time. So we actually run with a hot condenser. But if we were doing this seriously, we would put cold water together and increase the efficiency a little bit. But again, do you notice how beautifully quiet it is? Now we used to run this engine at full speed until somebody pointed out the fact that there's no ropes on there containing the spinning flywheel, and if something touched, it would just shatter the whole force. So we now run it just very slowly. So you never see on this one, you never see the horns coming out like they should do when it's going at 70 reps a minute. But better to run them safely than destroy everything fast. That's about 13 tons. Yeah. So that going at 70 reps a minute, there's a lot of energy in there, isn't there? Yeah.
How much does this whole unit weigh?
The whole thing, I suppose, about 30 tons. Yeah.
And what kind of PSI?
Sorry?
What kind of PSI is it running at?
Well, we're running it at about, I think, have we got 40 on the clock at the moment? 40, yeah.
That's not a lot at all.
But you see, it's not actually driving anything,
No.
It's just turning itself over, yeah. If it was driving a factory, it'd be 100 PSI, full
Few minutes on.
We have a bit of a problem with our forward yeah. So it arrived in bits, jumped in my dad's garden. This is the other very lucky thing, actually. My parents lived in the house that side, and my granddad lived in the house on that side. And one day he said, when I was still a medical student, I'm moving to come here to live with my other son. Do you want to buy my house? Well, do you know what? That was the cheapest way to do it. So, go on, let's see if we can get a little problem.
Yeah.
Gyro on that camera.
Oh yeah. Certainly feel heat from this one.
They always had to have a whole workshop running, or none. Yeah. And this guy just said, well, yeah, but who's
Run the big dozer on. Normally, I've heard in a while that one. He's old. You must have pulled it off the crate when you moved. So you're bloody right. Yeah, you need to stop taking the neck out of it. You drop everything as soon as you try it, don't you? Do you want to borrow my glasses? Karma at least strike them down every time.
I wasn't expecting to get this.
Alright.
Oh no, it's fun, it's fun. I've spoken all over this anyway, so I've already ruined it.